Customer question here: when do you skip a wacky rig versus a skipping jig? It's a good question. Personally, the jig is my confidence thing to skip docks with for a couple reasons. I can get it back there further usually, but it can come around any type of cover for the most part, right? If I do hang it over a chain, if I do go over a boat lift bar, if there's stuff hanging beneath the dock that I'm not seeing, the jig typically I can get it through. Sometimes you don't, but it typically can get out of there a lot more effectively than light lining that wacky rig senko and open exposed hook. This little brush guard does more wonders than you think it would, plus just the natural shape of it, and typically you're running heavier lines, so you have your ability to get not only your jig back from gnarly situations, but you also tend to get the fish out of there too. A lot of times you hook a fish, and if he's multiple rungs back or dock, post down the dock, they can run around any of that stuff, and with heavier line and a jig and a bait caster, you got a better shot of getting them out of there. But back to the wacky rig, wherever I put it there it is. The wacky rig senko here, I personally think this gets more bites. I think you have a better shot of hooking a fish, even negative fish, with a wacky rig senko than you do with a jig. For some reason, my confidence lies in that jig as far as getting a bigger bite, but I don't really know why. Maybe it's just funner and I'm more confident skipping a jig, because I've probably caught just as many, if not more, big fish on a wacky rig senko. It gets more bites. It'll get every size fish to bite under that dock. The problem is getting that fish out of there and making sure you get your bait back and not break off underneath that dock. So when I make my decision between the two is, if it's a dock that's real high off the water, doesn't have a lot of posts sticking down, doesn't have things hanging down underneath it, and I'm just fishing the main open part of the underneath the dock, I think a wacky rig senko is a better one to skip. But I think if you're fishing in a jungle type atmosphere, there's bars and chains and lots of vegetation and all this stuff under the dock and lots of dock posts, I'd skip a jig. So those are the two situations I usually run into fishing a dock, and why I choose a wacky rig senko or a jig in those situations. I just look and see how much stuff I can get stuck on.